The twin moons of Erender hung low in the twilight sky, casting a silvery hue over the sprawling capital city of Valarara. The ethereal light bathed the crystalline towers and glimmering pathways, turning the city into a landscape of dreams and illusions. Yet, within the heart of the grand palace, where the most brilliant minds and the strongest warriors of Erender gathered, a pall of despair loomed over the people. Their queen, the revered Isara, lay on the precipice of death, her once vibrant presence now dimmed by the cruel grasp of an incurable illness. Isara had ruled Erender for nearly 3 centuries, her reign marked by peace, prosperity, and unshakable strength. She was a symbol of hope, a beacon of wisdom, whose decisions had shaped the destiny of her people. Her azure eyes, which once shone with the fire of 1,000 stars, now carried the weight of impending departure. The illness had stolen much from her vitality, her physical strength, but it could not touch the depth of her spirit, nor could it diminish the love she held for her people. In the quiet confines of her private chamber, Isara sat by a large arched window, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon. The vast expanse of the Erender sky stretched out before her, and she felt an odd sense of peace amidst the turmoil within her body. She had long accepted her fate, understanding that even the most powerful beings must one day succumb to the inevitable cycle of life and death. But what unsettled her now was not fear of the end, but the unfulfilled wish that lingered in her heart. Her thoughts drifted to Earth, the small blue planet she had visited many years ago during a diplomatic mission. It had been a time of discovery, of curiosity, and of the unexpected connection that would haunt her even in her final days. The mission had been brief, a mere formality to establish a peaceful rapport with Earth's leaders. But it was there, amidst the noise and chaos of human life, that she had met Steve. Steve had been different from the others, so different that it had taken her by surprise. He was not a leader, nor a soldier, but a scientist, one of Earth's brightest minds. Yet it was not his intellect that had captivated her, but his humanity. He had a kindness about him, a warmth that contrasted sharply with the coldness of political discussions and the clinical detachment of scientific dialogue. In their brief encounter, they had spoken of many things, of stars and galaxies, of life in the cosmos, but also of simpler, more profound matters. Steve had shared stories of his childhood, of the dreams he harbored, of the love he had for the world despite its flaws. And Isara, in turn, had found herself revealing more than she ever intended, drawn by the sincerity in his eyes and the authenticity in his voice. It had been a momentary connection, one that should have faded with time. Yet, as the years passed, Steve's image had remained etched in her memory, a quiet yet persistent reminder of something she could not name. She had buried those feelings deep within, focused on her duties and the needs of her people. But now, as her body weakened and the end loomed near, that buried wish surfaced with a force she could no longer ignore. "Steve," she whispered to the empty room, her voice barely audible. The chamber, adorned with intricate tapestries and softly glowing crystals, seemed to resonate with her whispered word. There was no one to hear her, for she had dismissed her attendants and advisors earlier, seeking solitude. But the silence did not bring her peace, it only amplified the yearning that had taken hold of her heart. A soft chime echoed through the room, signaling the arrival of someone at her door. Isara turned her gaze reluctantly from the window, knowing that she could not avoid her responsibilities even now. With a wave of her hand, the door slid open, revealing a tall figure clad in the royal colors of deep blue and silver. "Your Majesty," the figure said, bowing deeply as he entered the room. It was Lyrael, her most trusted advisor and the leader of the Erendorian Council. His face, usually composed and confident, was etched with worry. Lyrael, Isara acknowledged, her voice regaining some of its old strength. "What news do you bring?" Lyrael straightened, his sharp eyes studying her with a mixture of concern and reverence. "The council has convened, Your Majesty. They are prepared to discuss the succession, should the need arise." Isara's lips curved into a faint smile, though it did not reach her eyes. "The council is always prepared," she said, her tone laced with a touch of irony. "But that is not what troubles you, is it?" "Though." Lyrael hesitated, a rare occurrence for the stoic advisor. "No, Your Majesty. It is not the succession that concerns me. It is you." Isara raised an eyebrow, inviting him to continue. "You have been," distant Lyrael said carefully, "more so than usual. The illness, I know, has taken its toll, but there is something else, something you have not shared with us." Isara looked at him for a long moment, weighing her words. Lyrael had been by her side for decades, a loyal servant and a trusted friend. If there was anyone she could confide in, it was him. And yet, the wish that burned within her was so personal, so tied to her very soul, that she hesitated to voice it. "I have done everything in my power to prepare Erendor for the time when I am no longer here," she said finally. "But there is one thing left undone, One wish that I must fulfill before I depart. Lyrael frowned, clearly puzzled. A wish? Your Majesty? What wish could be so important that it weighs on you even now? Isara turned back to the window, her eyes searching the stars that were beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. There is a man, she began softly. A human. From Earth. His name is Steve. Lyrael's confusion deepened, but he remained silent, allowing her to continue. I met him long ago, during a mission to Earth. Our encounter was brief, but it left a lasting impression on me. He was different, in a way that I cannot fully explain. For years I have kept his memory close, though I never understood why. But now, as I near the end of my life, I realize that there is something unresolved between us. Lyrael's eyes widened slightly in surprise. This was not the kind of matter he had expected to hear from his queen, especially not in her current state. And what do you wish to do, Your Majesty? And Isara sighed, the sound heavy with both longing and resignation. I wish to see him one last time, to speak with him, to understand why his memory has stayed with me for so long. I cannot leave this world with this question unanswered. Lyrael was silent, his mind racing as he processed her words. The Queen's request was unprecedented, to say the least, but he could see the determination in her eyes, the strength that had defined her reign, now focused on this final personal mission. Your Majesty, he said after a moment, his voice steady. If this is truly your wish, then I will do everything in my power to make it happen. But time is not on our side. The illness, Isara nodded, her expression resolute. I know. That is why we must act quickly. Send a message to Earth, to the authorities. They must find Steve and bring him here to Ernder. Lyrael bowed his head, acknowledging the command. It will be done, Your Majesty. As Lyrael turned to leave, Isara called out to him once more. Lyrael, she said, her voice softer now. Thank you. For everything. The advisor paused, then turned back to her, his expression one of deep respect and affection. It has been an honor to serve you, Your Majesty, and it will be an honor to fulfill this final wish. With that, Lyrael departed, leaving Isara alone once more. The room felt colder now, the silence more oppressive, but there was also a sense of relief, a release of the burden she had carried for so long. She knew that the journey ahead would not be easy. There were many uncertainties, many challenges to overcome. But for the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope, a hope that, even in her final moments, she might find the answer she sought. Isara closed her eyes, her thoughts once again drifting to the past, to that fateful meeting on Earth. She could still see Steve's face, still hear his voice as clearly as if he were standing before her. And she knew, deep in her heart, that this was the path she was meant to take. The final chapter of her life was beginning, and it would be written not in the halls of power, but in the quiet, personal connection between two souls from different worlds. As the moons of Ernder continued their slow descent, Queen Isara remained by the window, her mind filled with memories and dreams, waiting for the day when she would see Steve once more. On Earth, Steve Richards was unaware that his life was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. A respected scientist and researcher, he had dedicated his life to understanding the mysteries of the universe. Yet, amidst all his accomplishments, there was one experience that had stayed with him. A memory that had never quite faded, a memory of a queen from a distant world, a woman whose wisdom and grace had left a lasting impression on him. He had often wondered about her, about the world she came from, and what had become of her. But life had a way of moving forward, and Steve had eventually resigned himself to the fact that their paths would never cross again. That was, until one ordinary day, when an extraordinary message arrived. Steve was in his lab, surrounded by the familiar hum machinery and the soft glow of screens displaying data from his latest experiments. The routine of his work had become a comforting rhythm, one that allowed him to lose himself in the pursuit of knowledge. But that rhythm was abruptly shattered when his communication console beeped, indicating an incoming message. Steve glanced at the console, expecting the usual correspondence from colleagues or research institutions, but the insignia that appeared on the screen was unfamiliar and intricate design that seemed almost otherworldly. His brow furrowed in curiosity as he opened the message. The text that appeared was written in flawless English, yet there was something formal, almost regal, about the phrasing. To Steve Richards of Earth, you are hereby summoned to the planet Ernder by the request of Queen Isara. Your presence is urgently required. Please respond at your earliest convenience. Steve stared at the screen, his mind racing to process the information. Irindor. Isara. The names triggered memories he had long thought dormant. Could it really be her? The queen he had met so many years ago. His heart pounded in his chest as a flood of emotions washed over him: surprise, confusion, excitement, and a deep, inexplicable sense of longing. He had never forgotten her, though he had tried to convince himself that their meeting had been nothing more than a fleeting moment in time. But now it seemed that moment had returned, demanding his attention in a way that could not be ignored. Steve knew the risks involved in traveling to an alien world, especially one as distant as Irindor. The unknowns were vast, and the journey would take him far from everything familiar. Yet, despite the logical part of his mind urging caution, he felt an undeniable pull, a connection to Isara that transcended reason. He could not refuse. With a determined resolve, Steve sent his response. I accept. Please provide the necessary details for my journey. Why? The reply came swiftly, outlining the arrangements that would be made for his transport to Irindor. The efficiency and precision of the instructions left no doubt that this was a matter of great importance, and Steve couldn't help but marvel at the advanced technology that facilitated such communication across the vast distances of space. As he prepared for the journey, Steve's thoughts kept returning to Isara. What had happened to her? Why had she summoned him now? After all these years, the questions swirled in his mind, fueling a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. The day of departure arrived quickly, and Steve found himself standing at the edge of an unfamiliar landscape, a place where Earth's technology met the alien wonders of Irindorian transport. The vessel that awaited him was unlike anything he had ever seen, sleek and elegant, with a design that seemed to defy the conventional laws of physics. It shimmered in the light, as if made of pure energy, and Steve couldn't help but feel a sense of awe as he approached. The journey to Irindor was swift, the advanced propulsion systems of the vessel cutting through the fabric of space with ease. Steve watched in wonder as stars and galaxies blurred into streaks of light outside the windows, the vastness of the universe unfolding before him. When the vessel finally emerged from hyperspace, the sight that greeted Steve took his breath away. Irindor was a world of unimaginable beauty, a planet of crystalline structures, lush landscapes, and vibrant colors that seemed to pulse with life. The twin moons hung low in the sky, casting their ethereal light over the landscape, creating a scene that was both alien and awe-inspiring. As the vessel descended towards the capital city of Valera, Steve's heart raced with anticipation. The city stretched out below him, a marvel of architecture and design that seemed to blend seamlessly with the natural environment, and at the heart of it all stood the Grand Palace, its spires reaching towards the heavens, a testament to the power and majesty of the Irindorian civilization. When the vessel landed, Steve was greeted by a delegation of Irindorian officials, their expressions a mix of formality and curiosity. They escorted him through the palace's grand halls, each step bringing him closer to the queen who had summoned him across the stars. Finally, they reached a set of ornate doors, intricately carved with symbols and patterns that Steve couldn't begin to decipher. The doors opened slowly, revealing a large, domed chamber bathed in soft light. At the center of the room, seated on a throne that seemed to glow with an inner light, was Queen Azara. Steve's breath caught in his throat as he saw her. The years had taken their toll on her once vibrant form. Her figure was thinner, her skin paler, and her movements slower. But her eyes, those striking azure eyes, still held the fire of the woman he remembered. Isara looked up as he entered, a faint smile touching her lips. Steve, she said, her voice carrying a warmth that belied her weakened state. You came. Steve stepped forward, his heart aching at the sight of her frailty. Of course I came, he said softly. How could I not? For a moment, neither of them spoke, the weight of years and unspoken words hanging between them. Steve's mind was a whirlwind of emotions, relief at seeing her again, sorrow for the state she was in, and a deep, unspoken connection that had never fully faded. Isara gestured for him to sit beside her, and he did, taking a seat on a cushion that had been placed near her throne. Up close he could see the lines of exhaustion on her face, the way her hands trembled slightly as she reached out to take his. Thank you for coming, she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. I wasn't sure if you would. Steve shook his head. You knew I would come. Isara, I never forgot you. Why? She smiled at that, a bittersweet smile that spoke of memories and regrets. Nor I you, Steve. There is much I wish to say to you. Things I should have said long ago. Our meeting. It changed me in ways I never anticipated. Steve looked into her eyes, seeing the depth of emotion there, the weight of years and the burden of unfulfilled desires. What do you need to tell me, Isara? She took a deep breath, her gaze holding his. When we met on Earth, I was drawn to you in a way I couldn't understand. I thought it was mere curiosity, a passing fascination, but as the years went by, I realized it was something more. He showed me a part of myself that I had long buried, a part that yearned for connection, for something beyond duty and responsibility. And Steve felt a lump form in his throat as he listened to her words. He had felt it too, that inexplicable connection, though he had never fully understood it. I felt it too. Isara. There was something between us, something I could never quite explain. Isara nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. And now, as I near the end of my life, I find that I cannot leave without understanding what it was, without telling you that I cared for you more than I ever allowed myself to admit. Or Steve's heart ached at her confession, at the vulnerability in her voice. He reached out, gently taking her hand in his. Isara, But before he could finish, Isara placed a finger to his lips, silencing him. No need for words, Steve. Just stay with me. For as long as I have left, let us spend this time together. Let us remember what was and what could have been. Steve nodded, his emotions too overwhelming for words. He could see the toll the illness had taken on her, knew that their time was limited. But in that moment, all that mattered was the bond they shared, a bond that had transcended time and distance, and now even the impending shadow of death. As they sat together, memories of their brief time on Earth resurfaced, of late-night conversations under the stars, of laughter shared over the simplest of things, of a connection that had never quite faded, even across the vastness of space. In the silence of the chamber, Steve and Isara found solace in each other's presence, two souls from different worlds who had, against all odds, found their way back to one another. And though the future was uncertain, and the end was near, they knew that in these final moments they had found something rare and precious, a connection that would endure, even beyond the stars. The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, casting long shadows across the city of Valera. Its crystalline towers sparkled in the gentle glow of the morning sun, and the air was filled with a serene stillness that belied the turmoil that had gripped the palace in recent months. Yet within the grand walls of Queen Azara's private chambers, a miracle was quietly unfolding, one that would not only alter the fate of the queen herself, but also echo through the history of Arendar for generations to come. Isara, the once vibrant and unyielding ruler of Arendar, had been on the brink of death. The rare and incurable illness that had taken hold of her body was unlike anything the royal physicians had ever encountered. It had sapped her strength, dimmed her once bright eyes, and left her a shadow of the powerful queen who had led her people for centuries. Her advisors and subjects had prepared themselves for the worst, knowing that no cure existed within the vast repositories of Arendarian knowledge. But something extraordinary had happened, something beyond the reach of medicine or technology. In the days since Steve Richards, the human scientist from Earth, had arrived on Arendar, Isara's condition had begun to change. At first, the doctors had been puzzled by the sporadic bursts of vitality that seemed to defy all logic. They observed her with a mixture of hope and skepticism, running test after test, searching for a reason behind the inexplicable improvement. Yet, as Isara and Steve spent more time together, sharing their thoughts, fears, and emotions, the queen's strength continued to grow. Her pale complexion regained its warmth, her voice lost its tremor, and the once omnipresent pain seemed to dissipate. The doctors, astonished by the sudden and dramatic turnaround, delved deeper into their research, determined to uncover the truth behind this miraculous recovery. For days, the palace's medical wing was abuzz with activity. The doctors analyzed every aspect of Isara's condition, from the cellular level to the bioenergetic fields that surrounded her. They pored over ancient texts and consulted with the most advanced AI systems, yet none could provide a satisfactory explanation for the queen's sudden resurgence. It was only when they began to consider the less tangible aspects of her illness that the pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. Dr. Kalos, the head physician, was the first to voice what the others had been reluctant to consider. He was an elder among the Arendarian medical elite, his mind as sharp as ever despite his many centuries of service. After hours of reviewing data and consulting with his team, he approached Lyrael, Isara's trusted advisor, with a theory that bordered on the unthinkable. Lyrael, Doctor. Kalos began, his voice low and measured. I believe we have been approaching this illness from the wrong perspective. Lyrael, who had been keeping a vigilant watch over the queen's progress, turned to the doctor, his expression one of cautious curiosity. What do you mean, Kalos? Has there been a breakthrough? Of sorts, Kalos replied, his brow furrowing in thought. We've been focusing solely on the physical aspects of Her Majesty's condition, on the symptoms, the cellular decay, the biochemical imbalances. But what if the root of the illness is not physical, but emotional? Lyrael frowned, trying to grasp the implications of the doctor's words. Emotional? You're suggesting that her illness is psychosomatic? In a manner of speaking, Kala said, his tone contemplative. Arendorians, as you know, are deeply connected to the energies of our world, to the life forces that sustain us. For centuries, we've understood that our emotional states can influence our physical well-being, but we've never encountered a case where such a profound illness was tied so directly to unresolved emotional trauma. Bull. Lyrael listened intently, the weight of the revelation beginning to settle in. Are you saying that Her Majesty's recovery is linked to her relationship with Steve Richards? That her illness was a manifestation of her unexpressed emotions? It's more than that, Kala said, his voice growing more certain as he spoke. I believe that the Queen's feelings for this human feeling she has harbored and suppressed for years are at the very core of her condition. The bond they share, the love they've finally acknowledged, it's not just healing her heart, it's healing her body. Lyrael's mind raced as he considered the implications. The idea that love, a force so often relegated to the realm of poetry and myth, could possess such a tangible power was both extraordinary and terrifying. Yet, the evidence was irrefutable. Ysera's recovery had begun the moment she had reconnected with Steve, and it had accelerated with each deepening of their bond. This changes everything, Lyrael murmured, his gaze drifting to the door that led to the Queen's chambers. If what you're saying is true, then Her Majesty's survival, her very life depends on this love. And Kalas nodded solemnly. Indeed. And it also suggests that the illness will return if the bond is ever severed or if those feelings are once again suppressed. Her Majesty's heart and mind are inextricably linked to her physical health. Lyrael fell silent for a moment, absorbing the gravity of the situation. The implications were profound not just for Ysera, but for the future of Rindor itself. The Queen's relationship with a human, once considered an impossibility, was now a matter of life and death. But it was more than that. It was a beacon of hope, a symbol of unity between two worlds that had long remained distant. Thank you, Kalas Lyrael finally said, his voice filled with quiet resolve. We must ensure that this bond remains strong, for the sake of the Queen and for all of Arendor. With that, Lyrael turned and made his way to Ysera's chambers, his thoughts heavy with the responsibility that lay ahead. Inside her room, Ysera was seated by the window, the light of the early morning sun bathing her in a soft golden glow. Steve sat beside her, his hand gently resting on hers as they watched the city come to life. The bond between them had deepened in ways neither had anticipated, and the love they shared had become a source of strength for both. Ysera could feel the changes in her body, the resurgence of energy that defied all logic. She had spent so long battling the illness, accepting that her time was coming to an end, that this sudden reversal felt like a dream. Yet, she knew it was real. The love she had finally allowed herself to embrace had given her a second chance, a chance to live, to love, and to rule once more. As Lyrael entered the room, Ysera turned to him, a smile on her lips. Lyrael, she said, her voice carrying the warmth of newfound hope. I have never felt more alive. Lyrael bowed his head in respect, but there was a softness in his gaze that spoke of relief and affection. Your Majesty, I am overjoyed to see you so well. The physicians have been working tirelessly to understand the nature of your recovery. And what have they discovered? Steve asked, his curiosity piqued. Lyrael met Ysera's gaze, a hint of wonder in his eyes. They believe that your illness was not purely physical, but rather a manifestation of deep, unresolved emotions. It seems that the love you and Steve share has triggered a healing process that none of us could have anticipated. Ysera's eyes widened slightly, and she turned to Steve, her hand tightening around his. Our love. It's the cure. So it seems, Your Majesty, Lyrael confirmed. The doctors believe that as long as your bond remains strong, your health will continue to improve. But they have also warned that if this connection is ever severed, or if you suppress your feelings once more, the illness could return. Ysera was silent for a moment, absorbing the magnitude of what Lyrael had said. The illness that had nearly claimed her life was not some external force, but a reflection of the pain she had carried inside for so long, a pain born of unexpressed love, of the fear of vulnerability. And now, that same love had become her salvation. She looked at Steve, her heart swelling with gratitude and affection. I never imagined that love could hold such power, she said softly, but now that I have experienced it, I cannot imagine my life without it. And Steve smiled, his eyes filled with emotion. Neither can I, Ysera. I came here not knowing what to expect, but I've found something more precious than anything I could have imagined. I'm not leaving your side, not now, not ever. Ysera's smile widened, and she leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of peace, of completeness. She had spent centuries as a ruler, always placing the needs of her people above her own, always hiding her true self behind the mask of leadership. But now, with Steve by her side, she could finally behold both as a queen and as a woman. As the days passed, Isara's recovery continued at an astonishing pace. The doctors, though initially skeptical, could no longer deny the evidence before them. The queen's vitality had returned in full force, her strength and energy surpassing even what they had hoped for. The palace buzzed with the news of her miraculous recovery, and soon the entire city of Valara was alive with celebrations. The people of Erendor rejoiced at the return of their beloved queen, their hearts filled with renewed hope for the future. They had feared losing her, had prepared themselves for a time of mourning, but now they celebrated her resurgence with joy and gratitude. And as word spread throughout the planet, the tale of Isara's miraculous recovery of the love that had healed her began to take root in the collective consciousness of her people. But while the celebrations continued, Isara and Steve were already looking ahead to the future. They knew that their love, while powerful, was only the beginning. There was much work to be done, both in strengthening the bond between Erendor and Earth and in preparing for the challenges that lay ahead. One evening, as they stood on the balcony of the palace, overlooking the city bathed in the golden light of the setting suns, Isara spoke of her vision for the future. "Steve," she began, her voice filled with determination, "our love has brought me back from the brink of death. It has shown me that there is more to life, more to leadership, than I ever imagined. I want us to use this love not just for ourselves, but for our people, for our worlds." Steve turned to her, his expression serious yet hopeful. "What do you have in mind?" "I want us to forge a new path," Isara said, her eyes gleaming with purpose. "To unite our worlds, to build a future where Erendorians and humans can work together, learn from each other, and grow stronger as one. Our love will be the symbol of that unity, a testament to what is possible when we open our hearts to one another." Steve nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I agree. Isara, we have a chance to create something truly extraordinary, to show both our worlds that love can transcend boundaries and bring us closer together." "Why?" Isara smiled, her heart swelling with pride and love for the man beside her. "Then, let us begin. Together, we will lead Erendor into a new era, one where love is not just a personal bond, but a guiding force for all. Me." As the stars began to appear in the night sky, Isara and Steve stood side by side, their hands entwined. They knew that the path ahead would not be easy, that there would be challenges and obstacles to overcome. But they also knew that their love was strong enough to face whatever the future held. And so, with the twin moons of Erendor as their witness, they made a vow to lead their people with love, to build a future where unity and understanding would prevail. It was a vow that would echo through the halls of history, a testament to the power of love to heal, to unite, and to transform. In the years that followed, Isara and Steve would go on to rule Erendor together, their love story becoming legendary throughout the galaxy. They would oversee the strengthening of ties between Erendor and Earth, fostering a new era of cooperation and mutual respect. Their reign would be remembered not just for the peace and prosperity it brought, but for the profound message it carried that love, in all its forms, is the most powerful force in the universe. And so, as the people of Erendor looked up at the night sky, they would remember the tale of Queen Isara and the human who had saved her. They would tell the story of how love had healed a broken heart and mended a dying body, and how that love had forged a bond between two worlds that would last for all time. Isara and Steve's love became more than just a personal triumph. It became a beacon of hope for all, a reminder that no matter how vast the universe, no matter how insurmountable the challenges, love would always find a way to overcome, to heal, and to unite. And as they stood together, gazing out at the stars, they knew that their journey had only just begun.